Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny remains hospitalized here in Berlin in a medically induced coma. He's recovering from what German doctors say was most likely poisoning. But the Kremlin has rejected this diagnosis, saying German doctors were too hasty with their conclusions. Now, this today from a Kremlin spokesman. We are categorically against someone labeling this current situation a poisoning, which is something that is not confirmed yet. This is a Russian citizen who is in a coma, and we would like to find out the reason for this coma. Well, Russia is under increasing pressure to investigate Navalny's illness. Tests have confirmed have all the hallmarks of a nerve agent attack. Germany is demanding a full and transparent investigation, a call that's backed by the European Union, the United States, and the UK.
The reaction of the German government is based on the clinical findings of the treating physicians, and of course, these findings are made without any political influence. The German government expects the Russian authorities to provide transparent and speedy clarification and has full confidence in the work of the medical team treating Mr. Navalny at Charité Hospital.
All right, for more on this, I'm joined now by Andreas Nick. He's a member of the German Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. He's also a member of German Chancellor Angela Merkel's conservative CDU party. Mr. Nick is in Montabaur in Western Germany tonight. Mr. Nick, it's good to see you again. Germany was first to call on Russia to investigate. The European Union, the US, and the UK are now doing the same. That's a lot of pressure in unison. Is it enough to make the Kremlin do something?
I think that remains to be seen. The jury is out. We have been very forthcoming in offering medical treatment to Mr. Navalny. First of all, we hope for his complete and full recovery. And it is a matter of urgency, a matter of great concern. It is not a one-off. It's another one in a series of dubious killings and assassination attempts of Russian opposition politicians over the last couple of years. And I think it is there to send a clear message that being a leading opposition politician in Russia is a very dangerous role.
Well, what leverage does Germany have with Putin's Russia at this point? You have sent Russian diplomats home in protest before, but even that seemed symbolic and nothing more. Do you have real leverage?
I think, may I remind you that the European Court of Human Rights was issuing an interim measure end of last week, which was instrumental also in getting Mr. Navalny out of Russia and into the Charity Hospital. I think what we can do at the moment is clearly call upon a full and transparent investigation. This has to be conducted prompt, independent, and effective. We are clearly looking at that as a matter of urgency. It is as also our foreign ministry has made clear, this will not remain unanswered. We keep all our options and instruments open as we speak.
You know, Mr. Nick, before Alexei Navalny was medevaced out of Siberia and brought here to Berlin, the story was mainly about a German NGO trying to help a Russian political dissident. As soon as Mr. Navalny landed here, though, that story quickly became political. Is that what you and your fellow lawmakers in Parliament, did you want it to be that way?
I think our government has taken, I think, the necessary measures that someone whose family is asking for medical treatment in our country, in Berlin, in the Charité, gets access to that. And clearly it is of a symbolic, but also very practical nature, that the personal security of Mr. Navalny in the Charité is secured by federal agents of the Federal Police Department. I think we have no interest to politicize this in the first place. I think this is about human rights. This is about the rule of law. I think it would be a mistake if we were giving additional feeding the legend that this is part of a geopolitical struggle or anything else. I think this is about very fundamental rule of law issues that Russia also, as a member state of the Council of Europe, has to comply with.
Were you surprised, Mr. Nick, to see how quickly the United States also came on board and demanded that Russia investigate?
Well, I think we have our question marks about at least the role of some representatives of the United States when it comes to specific issues regarding Russia. I think this may also be not a coincidence that this is happening now in the run-up to the U.S. Election and in the context of the Belarus protests. We will see. I think, again, all of us, I think, would be well advised not to frame this or to support framing this into part of a geopolitical struggle, but it's a very fundamental issue about the rule of law and fundamental human rights in the Russian Federation.
I just want to press you on this while we have time. Germany and the U.S. are united in this case. But when it comes to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, for example, you're not. The Trump administration accuses Germany of making itself dependent on Russia for energy. Do you sometimes feel, Mr. Nick, that Germany is caught between a Russian rock and an American hard place?
I think we don't think that unilateral sanctions as applied and threatened by the U.S. government increasingly are at all helpful. I think they are counterproductive. We strongly advise from refraining from this kind of action against an ally like Germany and respecting the political and economic sovereignty also of an allied nation, I think is one of the core elements of our alliance. Nevertheless, I think we have issues with regard to the Russian Federation, where I think we are hopefully in broad agreement that we strongly ask Russia to come back to the peace and security order that has been agreed in the Charter of Paris in 1990, which I think for us is still the key point of reference of living together in Europe.
Andreas Nick, member of the German Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. As always, Mr. Nick, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the Cinema for Peace Foundation has played a key role in bringing Russian opposition activists here to Berlin for treatment at the Charité Hospital. It did so with a Pussy Riot activist in 2018, and it medevacked Alexei Navalny from Siberia to Berlin just last weekend. Now, the group's chair, Jaka Bizel, told DW's chief political editor, Michaela Kufner, how the arrangements were made.
Jaka Bizel, you are the head of Cinema for Peace, but most of all at the moment, you are the man who brought Alexei Navalny to Germany. How safe do you feel right now?
Well, there have been a few threats, but I've experienced this before, so I don't really feel unsafe. I think that's what happens when you deal with opposition leaders from countries which are not a full democracy.
Who did you call first? Because it's not easy to just get a permit to enter Russia just like that.
Well, first I called the Charité and Professor Einolp and Professor Eckert to find out if they would be willing to help again like they did 2 years ago. And it was kind of a bit funny because the office said like, oh, you're calling finally. We've been expecting the call already since this morning, since we've seen the news. So they thought that it could be a similar case possibly.
How much assistance did you get from that first moment from the German government?
Actually, we informed them about things that we were doing. But the very first moment was more the logistical work. Obviously, we were aware of the fact that Angela Merkel and Macron had been giving some statements and were offering medical help in their countries. So we felt like that there should not be any obstacles from that side.
How has the last week changed your view of the political reality in Europe?
Well, I mean, what we are proud of in the West is that we have so-called Western values and democracies. And I think after what has been happening with Donald Trump, what has been happening with Corona, it felt like that there's an erosion of democratic values and also of European unity. I think if the West wants to stay the West, it needs to take a clear stand for human rights and democracy. And it also needs to prove that in a relationship to the rest of the world.
What's your biggest hope and your biggest concern right now?
Well, my hope would be that the patient will come back to normal fully. I saw last night by chance his wife Julia again. She seemed kind of like okay. I have the feeling that Navalny could be doing a little bit better now by now. So my hope would be that actually the whole thing will be resolved in the sense that he will be able to do his work again. And then maybe the whole case can also remind our countries to work on Russia to protect its journalists and opposition politicians, and not to be a country where people like Anna Politkovskaya, Boris Nemtsov, or now Navalny have to fear for their life.
Jakob Bizil, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.